Hey guys, welcome back to our monthly market update. This is for February 2024. I'm joined with Patty Martin and Jennifer Adams. How are you two?
Doing great. Thanks for having us back.
Of course, I want you guys to. Yeah, very good insight. Before we jump into the stats, I want to talk about some of the changes the provincial government came out with this past month. And I don't know how I feel about them. I have some mixed feelings about their effectiveness. But the first one that they discussed was another measure to stop flippers, property flippers. Patty, I know we talked about it earlier in the week, and you had some good comments about this one. So do you think that this flipping is just more talk to get reelected, or is it going to have an effect on the market? And then what is the new measure of flipping?
I'm not ambivalent about this at all. I do not support this tax in any way, shape, or form. Because if we are trying to increase the availability of potential listings, this is not the way to do it for a couple of reasons. The first is if you have bought a property and now you know you're going to have to pay that 20% tax and you don't want to, you're going to hold on to that property longer than you might have, decreasing the chances of more inventory. That's the first problem. The second, and this is the much bigger problem, there are many contractors who buy from us all the time, right, guys? We sell this stuff. Hey, Patty or Jennifer, Adam, find me a really beat up place and I'm going to fix it up and then I'm going to resell it. He's just making money. This is what we do in our society. This is normal. And then the buyer who wants to buy it, who would never have bought it in the condition it originally was because A, they couldn't do the work, or B, they do not have the cash flow to do the work, will not buy it. And if the developer or contractor has a chance to fix it and make it beautiful, he can put it back on the market. And that same buyer who really needs a place because there's no inventory would likely buy it, because not only do they not have to do the work, but they can build in those renovations into their mortgage. It's already done. They don't have to find the cash flow. So this is a ridiculous idea on the part of the government. Sorry, I don't mean to be so passionate about this, but
Well, it's very good comments, but let's also remember that this 20% is a provincial tax, tax on the profit that you make by trying to flip a home, but it's also in addition to the federal tax that came out.
Right. You only pay capital gains. You're always having to factor that in. So you have effectively, not only are you hindering inventory, you're shutting some people down who need the work. And that is ridiculous.
I completely agree. I mean, I think that all of us can agree that when we look at the inventory that exists in a lot of our communities, it's an aging inventory. I grew up in a house that was built in 1970, and I can only imagine what that house looks like now if someone hadn't renovated it. So that type of home is right for someone like a builder or like a flipper to purchase, fix it up, and then add to the inventory. So what we're doing by putting this tax in is because I have so many buyers that say to me, Jennifer, listen, I'm sorry, I cannot renovate it on my own. Like I'm not handy. My husband's not handy. I don't know we don't know what we're doing. And we need to have that cost built in. We don't have the cash. Let's say we bought it. How do we then fix it up? So it's exactly what you said, Patty. This flipping tax is, it's really unfortunate, and I don't think it's going to assist anyone.
And
So it sounds like we're really... Go ahead, Patty.
Well, to my point, we had a new listing that came up, and, I phoned someone that would buy this, and he will not purchase it right now because he is afraid of the implications of the tax. So
Yes.
Again, I know that some things are done because, there's an effort on the part of the government to try to increase the inventory, to keep the real estate market so that people can afford. I get all of that, but they are not talking to the people that are on the street doing the work. They are not talking to us.
Yeah.
And if they did, they would see, like, wherever you guys are, if somebody could watch this, just think that one through. That's one thing that you're doing that it sounds great. Isn't that great? Oh, we're going to tax those, as Jennifer says, flippers. Ordinary people that just want to make a living and are doing a really good service and allow.
In fact, they're more than ordinary people. They're people with the skill to make improvements to homes that buyers will then buy.
Increasing the inventory.
Yeah.
So here's another direction.
You can tell I'm not passionate. Sorry.
Here's another direction that we spoke about, Patti, and it's the implication to pre-sale developments on this flipping tax. And so if we're talking about increasing inventory, the type of person that might invest in a pre-sale 3-4 years down the road is now deemed a flipper. If that property has now appreciated in value, they could rent it out, they could sell it, but now there's this hurdle. So walk me through, in just general terms and easy terms to understand, how these future developments might actually not get built because of this 20% tax.
Well, so a lot of these guys do a pre-sale, and then they head to the bank and say, "Look, I've already sold half of it."
Sorry, when you say these guys, are you talking about the buyer or the developer?
A developer says, let's do a pre-sale. Let's make sure that this is really what we need to do, that there's buyers for it, and that's what they do. And then they present it to the bank. The bank funds them, and they build an enormous amount of housing that some people flip and some actually live in, and some buy, like you did last year, Adam, an investment property. And there's nothing wrong with this. This is normal. This is normal behavior. We're not all trying to make a cajillion dollars. We're just investing in the real estate market, which is a sound investment. Go ahead, Jen. Sorry.
So the one place I do think this might have a positive effect for people trying to find a home, and that's how I'm going to phrase this, is right here. Because I think what happens is that when you purchase a pre-sale now, you're going to purchase it with the caveat, hey, I'm going to have to rent it out for at least the first 2 years before selling it so I don't get dinged with this tax. So this may, and it only may, because I don't have a crystal ball, but people that purchase pre-sales might go into it with that idea that they're going to rent it out. So it may increase the rental inventory. So it may assist people finding homes, but not purchasing.
But hang on, Jen. And I'm just gonna be the devil's advocate for a second. So I buy the pre-sale and I sell it 2 years from now at a profit, because that's happened. I mean, and sometimes people win and sometimes they lose. I mean, I can remember people lining up for the Lotus in Richmond, and 4 years later, when it was developed, they were losing somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $75,000 because they bought it the future price, and the future never happened in the way that they thought. But anyway, the property comes back on the market. It's still a home. It's still a potential home for people who are looking. It costs more, but that's the same with everything we do. Like, if we have the wherewithal to get ourselves into the real estate market, we have some means to put a down payment down. That's you shouldn't be penalized for that. That's just living your life and trying to, build your equity in your own lifestyle. That's not a crime.
No, it's definitely not a crime. Of course, we are in a capital society.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say, though, is, Patti, we do drive by those buildings and they are dark at night. And the reason is that people say to themselves, "Oh, I'm going to pay the speculation and vacancy tax." But this is now another place where they're going to either have to get a renter in there, or they're going to have to, or they'll have to pay this tax if they turn around to sell it. So all I'm saying is that there's a chance
they left them empty and they're paying the speculation tax, and they just have to leave it that empty longer. That's all. Right. So that's really the only downside in order to avoid the tax. And they are, because you're right, they are empty. We drive by the Two World Bridge, and yep, there's a lot of empty houses there. A lot of tax going to the government.
So let's move on, guys, because there's another tax exemption actually that the government has announced, and they've made some exemptions to property transfer tax. One, to both of you, let's say what it is, and is it going to be good for first-time buyers? Is it going to help them at all? Is it really going to make a difference to help people buy their first home?
So I think this is, it is an advantage that has been introduced for first-time home buyers. So previously, and the new tax exemption will take effect April 1st, 2024.
Yeah.
So for purchases up until April 1st, first-time home buyers are exempt for the first $500,000 from paying this tax. And this threshold has been extended up to $835,000. So this is now going to encompass, a lot more properties, and properties that are perhaps more in line with price-wise where people are actually purchasing as a first-time home buyer. We all know that there's not much to purchase under $500,000 these days. Now, the property transfer tax is a little bit complicated. Of course, any of our group is happy to answer questions about it, or you can contact your tax professional about this, and they'd be happy to explain the nuances of it.
That's a very good point. And remember that for properties that we're talking about new construction, again, it has to be your principal residence. The old property transfer tax was had an exemption up to $750,000, and that's now been bumped to $1.1 million. But that's not for first-time buyers. That's for anybody buying new construction.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that will affect how people buy and sell properties. I think that's one that's going to make a difference. That 1.1 million, because you can actually get a one-bedroom city center Vancouver for $700,000-$800,000 for 600 square feet. So if you're going up to 1.1, you'll probably get that two bedroom. So even if it saves you $15,000 or whatever it is, that's a considerable amount of money.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing to think about for a first-time home buyer is, on average, they're going to save about $8,000. And someone might say, well, what is $8,000? Well, hey, when you're a first-time home buyer and you're arriving to the notary to pay for everything, that $8,000 of kind of cash that you had to come up with in order to pay that tax, that's a significant amount for first-time home buyers. So I do think this is, it's helpful. It's definitely helpful.
Let's jump into the stats. There's a lot to discuss in a short amount of time, so let's get right into it. The board has come out and said that residential sales in the region totaled 2,070 in February 2024. It's a 13.5% increase from February 2023, so from a year ago. Keep in mind that this 2,070 sales in February is up 45% from January last month. Are we seeing a continued pace to the market from buyers? Are we seeing that through February into March now?
I hesitate to say yes. So we see a little bit more inventory. We definitely see more sales. Will this continue? I don't know. I think that we see a lot of activity at open houses right now. So we had a detached home in Steeston where over the weekend we had more than 50 groups come through it. And it was at approximately the $2 million price point. That's a lot of people looking at that home. I don't know, Patti, what do you think?
I honestly feel there's been a bit of a shift, that we were really busy and we still are. But I feel that there's just a tiny bit of cooling, and it's just even the 50 people through the open house, like how many people were actually buying, right?
Right.
And so, and I can see one of the other things, and it's so unscientific, but when I drive through neighborhoods and I see more signs, I start to think, is this shifting a little bit? Are we starting to see a bit more inventory? Are we going to see even the daily, every day we get active listings and then the sales? And I always look at that. Again, very unscientific, but the last few days, the number of new listings has hovered in Richmond at about 78, and the sales have been about 25. So that means that there's more inventory coming than there are sales. That means that inventory starts to build up a little bit. So I am telling sellers, if they're planning on selling in the next short time, to get their house on the market now. Yeah, I believe that may shift.
Yeah.
That's a good point to start talking about new listings. There were 4,560 new properties newly listed for sale on the MLS in Metro Vancouver in February 2024. That's a 31% increase from February 2023. So when you go from January listings to February listings, it's up 31%, just new listings to the market. It's kind of the same question here. Is this surprising that there's that many more listings coming to market? Are these new listings that the market hasn't seen before? Or are these just people who took their houses off in December and are kind of relisting back in February to catch that early spring market?
It's a mix. I still go to evaluations where I'm showing people what's for sale that they're competing against, and it's fairly overpriced, not very attractive listings that become their competition. But that can change, right? It will change. And so, yeah, some of it is a rehash for sure. And even, like I said, I think I talked about this last month, I've been just evaluations where I'm showing sellers things that have been on the market that they're going to compete against for 180 days. Well, not much competition there. That's not that hard to imagine that you might get attention and the other one does not, right?
Yeah.
So, but that seems like, again, seems like it could change. I don't know why. I just feel it. Yeah, that's it.
Just to add to that comment, if we look at month-over-month increase, there was a 21% increase in listings to the market from January to February. So it went from 3760 to 4560, to give you guys an idea.
Yeah.
But that's just people newly listing to market. That's not predicting kind of levels of inventory and levels of sales, which is more important because that tells us the state of the market. So the total number of properties currently listed for sale on the MLS is 9,634, a 16% increase compared to February 2023. Is this a lot of listings for our market?
I don't believe it's a lot of listings for our market. No, not at all. I think, getting up around 12,000 seems like we're starting to talk about a lot of listings, but anything under 10,000, under inventoried.
It's interesting. So, yeah, so that was going to be my next question. Given that Patti's comment that, every day we kind of check the sales, we're looking at Metro Vancouver, you see 150 new listings, then you see about 78 sales just all throughout the city. It does see that there's that little bit of inventory that's just being added and added and added. It'll be interesting to see what the absorption rate is of all these properties. Again, just another little comment. If we look at the inventory from January 2024, the market now for total inventory is up about 12% month over month. So there's been an increase, but then you look at the sales, which are up 13.5%.
Yes.
So, well, actually, I should take that back. Sales month over month from January to February is up 45%. And month over month, total inventory is 12.
We're still we're still dealing with multiple offers on most of our listings right now.
Yeah, it's really price point driven, right? It's really price point driven. Jen, your comment about getting into the 12,000 listing mark is very interesting because if we go back just to October 2023, we had 11,600 listings. In November 2023, 11,200. And back in May 2021, we were just shy of 12,000 listings. So it can happen.
Yeah, it can happen. And I would tell you that those months in the fall that you're referring to, the market felt much more balanced at that time. So just those few thousand listings, all of a sudden, things slow down a bit. People have time to put lots of subjects and do inspections. And I think so it'll be interesting to see what the stats tell us next month.
Yeah, next month will be the month.
The board has now come out and taken all this data and squished it together and said that even with the increase in new listings, total inventory levels were not high enough relative to the pace of sales to mitigate price acceleration in February, with most segments of the market moving into seller's territory.
I'm just going to tell you, like, again, just on a very micro level, like a few of the offers that we've done in the last week, if they had happened 4 weeks ago, I think we would have seen slightly different results, certainly in the number of offers that we received.
Are you saying you would have had more offer?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Just moving on to the last comment here, when we look at sales to active listing ratios, for all property types, the market has now moved into a 22.4% sales to active listing ratio. So that's more in a healthy seller's market. The bulk of that will be made up of condos and townhouses. Condos are selling at 28% sales to active listing ratio, and our townhouses are now 25.9%. Detached is sitting at 16, so a little bit more of a balance, leaning into a buyer, right? Just leaning into a buyer's side.
Yeah.
To finish this off, this is a lot of information. Do we have any comments, tips, tricks, things to watch out for in the market for our buyers and sellers? Last comment before we sign off.
Find another profession if you're a flipper. Whatever that is.
Yeah, get savvy.
Sorry.
For sure. Get savvy.
No, I do feel sorry for some of these people that were doing that.
Yeah.
I do. And I feel sorry for the buyers who aren't going to see the product.
All right, guys. I think that's a great spot to end. Thank you very much for joining this month's video update, and we'll see you next month.
Look forward to it. Thanks so much.
Bye, guys.
Bye.